A lot of people want to improve their lives. A lot of people also set goals, but most people fail to execute those goals. And I think one of the key mistakes people do is they don't take willpower into account. In this video, I want to share my view on willpower and that I think it's a limited resource, how you can optimize it, how you can change it on the short term, and how you should build up your self-improvement journey so it's actually fruitful long term. I think one of the most important concepts when it comes to self-improvement is understanding that willpower is a limited resource. I see a lot of people, almost all people at one point, getting triggered to change. So most people want to change, and even most people formulate goals, but where it really breaks down most people is the adherence. So people just quit, and I think one of the main reasons why people quit is because the goals at the start were too high. So in my opinion, we start building a fundament of positive habits and we just stack them. There's a book called Habit Stacking also that goes into flow. But the main thing really is that if you formulate your goals, I think you should use a strategic approach, which is like, what are my worst habits? How much willpower would it take me to change those? And how much benefit would it give to me? So I said willpower is a limited resource, but I'm also saying that willpower can be changed and can be improved. And by changed, I mean, if you sleep well and if you eat healthy, you will have more willpower. And I think actually the biggest impact is sleep. So I would really recommend most people to dive into sleep for a bit at the start to figure out how they could improve their environment to have a better sleep and their behaviors. Figure out how to improve your sleep because that will just maximize the willpower in short term. Then also, I think you can improve willpower over time, which means when you say you do stuff and you're actually going to do it, then in the future it will be easier for you to tackle harder and harder challenges. And that I don't just mean in a relative way. So let's say if you say, hey, I'm running 5 kilometers today, and then 1 week later you say, hey, I'm running 6 kilometers, then actually 6 kilometers does require less willpower, but it's also because you're already trained for 5 kilometers. I'm also saying if you keep sticking to your word, in general, something that is unrelated and not based on the training that you already have is improving your willpower. It's going to be easier for you. So yeah, the key here is to set realistic expectations. And I would always rather go for smaller goals than for larger goals. We can formulate larger goals, but not in the short term. So if you have really large goals, write them down, but write them for 5 years or 3 years, 1 year, whatever. But if you want to change your habits day to day, you don't want to get in the situation where you don't stick to your plan already in the first couple of days. So instead of saying, hey, I'm going to the gym twice a day, which is not even a good thing, you go like, hey, I'm going 3 times a week. You do a training program. You don't do the best training program. You do something that that has a high adherence. So, and this, in my opinion, should be the start of self-improvement. And we then go into habit stacking. And as soon as something is not really requiring willpower, we have more willpower available, and we find something else that we want to improve. And that is kind of how we build our fundament up. And it's not just positive habits, but it's also negative habits. And those negative habits can also have a really dramatic impact on how much willpower is available. If we watch TikTok or we watch Reels the whole day, I find it very, very difficult to get the motivation to actually do the hard things. I had times in my life where I was vaping or even smoking cigarettes, and whenever a frustration happened, I went for a cigarette. And it was very tough for me, especially in coding, to go through the pain. And if you have a task and you finish it, you get dopamine, right? But if you smoke a cigarette, you also get dopamine. But it's a different kind of dopamine. The cigarette is not healthy for you. It's like, we don't need to talk about that. But if you build a task, but if you finish a task, that's, I would call good dopamine. And we have to understand that part of our brain is still a rat brain and it is just triggered by dopamine. So we need to use willpower over time. And that is a difference between us and animals, where we can say, okay, this is unhealthy. This is not good for me. It's giving me dopamine, but it's not good for me in the long term. So we basically optimize what we get for us in the long term. And if we get rid of that, we again up our willpower, and immediately we find, the worst habit and exchange it with a good habit. That I found was a very, very impactful thing to do, because you can almost change the trigger. So let's say you want to stop smoking, and then you do, whenever you have the urge to smoke a cigarette, you drink water. So by that you replace a negative habit with a good habit. And I really think one of these like adaptations is enough. You need to figure out what are the worst habits that I'm currently doing that are draining me, that is taking my energy, and what are the best things that I can do. And I'm a big fan of the strategic approach, and this might seem a little bit over the top, but I really felt that making a plan, executing the plan, sticking to the plan, create a lot of good feeling, and it really helped to tackle tougher and tougher challenges. So when we keep doing those improvements, then the change actually gives us a very good feeling, but over time it's getting a little bit less, because I think the change is giving more of a good feeling than the actually thing that you do that is what you're improving. So if you have a new habit, at the start it feels very good, and at later, even though it's the same good habit for you, it doesn't feel as exciting. So also our goals change, right? And some negative habits might have reintroduced themselves. So I think after doing those iterations, at least every other week, we should have a reassessment where I personally have a reassessment every week where I think, okay, what are the worst habits that I'm currently doing? What are the positive habits that I want to do? And then I'm setting small micro goals for the upcoming days and weeks. And I keep doing those iterations to build up again my fundament. But I think if you don't reassess yourself, that's a big mistake, because negative habits, negative people, they all are often cheap dopamine, and because negative habits are cheap dopamine and our red brain is getting triggered by them, let's just be honest. So it's easy for them to come back into our life, and it's also easy to forget about the things that are good for us. So we kind of get to a structure that I'm suggesting here, which is figuring out what are the negative things based on the limitation of willpower, and reassess ourselves every week or every other week. There's no end goal. So I personally like that journey, and I believe I read it in Anthony Robbins' book when I was like 18 or 19. I remember till today, it's about constant and never-ending improvement, and it really gives me a lot of fulfillment. I hope that's the same for some other people out there as well, and I hope that that journey is something that people can enjoy over a long time, and it's not like, hey, I want to go from A to B and then I'm gonna get do whatever my red brain wants me to do again, because I think then you're just gonna decline. You don't even stagnate, you're gonna decline. So I think you should see it as a never-ending journey right from the start. It's something that you need to build up in a way that you can enjoy it, right? So don't make the task that it's pain for you, Try to figure out what is good for you, how you can enjoy the whole process. Make the things so you just get a little bit out of comfort zone, a little bit through your frustration, and then be happy about the change you made, and in a way that you can run a marathon and not a sprint. So let's summarize everything together. Willpower is a limited resource. So we don't want to aim for too high goals. We want to optimize for adherence. We try to increase our available willpower through sleep and nutrition, and by sticking to our word and stacking our habits. We want to use regularly self-assessments to evaluate where we are and how we need to change our plan, and how we need to utilize our willpower for positive change. I think when you watch reels, it's very easy to get drawn into any specific change, but each person's self-improvement journey is different and unique. So instead of giving you straight up things that you should improve, what a lot of other people do and what can be good in a lot of situations, I want to talk here about structural thinking, about how to set up plans. And to me, I've been on this journey for a while now, and I've had ups and downs. I had even years where I was not on the journey. I was declining by a lot, and it weren't happy times. Luckily, I always found back into that kind of journey, and it gives me a lot of fulfillment, and I really enjoy it. And I felt this was a good first video to come back to my YouTube channel after a while, and it's targeted to people that are just getting started with self-improvement. I'm gonna go to more advanced topics in the future and gonna share my experience and where I am at the moment. And if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up or subscribe. I hope that helped anybody. If you have any questions or critique, the comment section is free. Thanks for watching.